All right, we're here for a Delray Beach Open wrap-up video or summary video after the lead-in videos we did. A little disappointed because I'm a huge Tommy Paul fan, and I don't know about you, Matt, but also I think it's funny we're sitting here in Florida. We got like multiple layers on because we got hit with this cold front. It's so atypical for Florida. Maybe that was the cause of the trouble. No.
Yeah, no, it was so funny because I was looking at the coverage on tennis.com and they kept making fun of Florida weather, like, there was so much rain and really at the end of the day, the tournament had perfect weather except for Sunday. Sunday just got rained out, so that was actually a win for the tournament. But Monday came along and it was pretty much perfect weather for the final. Just a little bit of wind, obviously, and I think that affected both of their serves and maybe a little bit of their ground stroke production in terms of the wind. But other from that, I think the weather was great.
Were
And
you at the match?
yeah, I was at the match.
And it felt pretty good. Was it very windy or just a bit windy?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd say it was, yeah, it was windy enough where it's going to impact your toss, as a player. You always worry about the ability to toss the ball where you want it when the wind kicks up the way it did, and it kept up the whole match. So I think it impacted at least Tommy and Taylor's ability to hit their spots as much as they would have wanted to. But both players served fairly well, so I think at the end of the day, the weather was decent. I mean, I brought a big sweatshirt and then was in a t-shirt by the time the match started, so it
Okay.
was one of those
Well,
days.
well, Fritz started with an ace, so that was, we talked beforehand like if Fritz has a big serving day, it's gonna be tough for Tommy. And
Yeah,
as soon as he hit that ace, I was like, oh no, this is either gonna be a long day or a very bad day for this
yeah,
is gonna
it
be.
was.
Yeah, so I don't know. What's to start with, what's your takeaway on the match as a whole? How was it won? How did the two players look to you in person there?
Yeah, so I think, going back to our initial video predicting, who would show up in the final, we did predict a Tommy and Taylor final, so that was good. I believe I said that my heart wants Tommy to win, but my brain believes that Taylor will win.
Yes,
So I
yes.
think my brain won over my heart in this one. But overall, I thought it was a very fascinating match to watch because Tommy came in with a lot of confidence, obviously off his win last week at the Dallas Open. And he seemed to have some swagger on the court and was confident after that big Francis Tiafoe win that he was able to win very easily. Taylor, however, just looked rock solid. And I have a lot of key takeaways about the match, but overall, yes, Taylor served well, which is what I was worried about, in terms of Tommy's chances at beating Taylor. But what really impressed me, Zach, at the end of the day was Taylor's ground strokes. He just seemed to be a little bit more dialed in on his ground strokes, putting a little more shape on the ball, bit more topspin, bit safer, yet still very deep. And I felt like Tommy was going for a bit too much on his ground strokes. He
Mm.
has a flatter ball, a less margin for error. And I think at the end of the day that Tommy may have been a little bit too amped up for the match. And he said that in a quote, which is in my article on
Okay.
FloridaTennis.com. He was a little too excited. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was maybe a little too eager to prove himself. We were talking about that
Yeah.
he wanted to prove himself beforehand. We were like, or maybe that was not on the video, but maybe that was a call we had, a
Yeah.
private call where we were talking about like, he would be probably very eager to prove himself, to climb above Fritz for once, to do it by beating Fritz. I mean, I don't know if that would put him above Fritz, but to try to become the number one American. And Fritz has sort of held that title pretty firmly for a while. Um, and yeah, maybe just wanted it too bad and was, we've all been there on the
Yeah.
court when you're
Yeah.
trying to hit, when you're trying too hard, it's a recipe for disaster. You're like, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna hit a little harder so I can hit this guy off the court, or I'm just gonna hit a little bit better so that, I win this point, and it's often the wrong way to go. Like you need to play within yourself. You need to, use the Tao of Pooh, the Taoism approach of actionless action, as I'm sure Tommy's coach would say. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's too like there's matches you watch Tommy and he's just locked in and you're like this guy is unbeatable.
Yep.
And then there's other times when he's just a little too loose with the shots and I can't say why. I don't know. In this case maybe it was wanting it too bad, maybe it was the wind, but it just felt like it wasn't going to be his day.
Yeah,
Sort
I mean, a few takeaways, and one very astute observation you made was playing within yourself, right? And I felt like Taylor Fritz really played within himself. He didn't overhit. He didn't get too eager to hit winners. He attacked the net, but in a very strategic way, not too often. And he just was rock solid from the baseline, not a lot of errors. But what really set Fritz apart was his ability to withstand the pressure when Tommy Paul had a break point. He
oh
wound up
my gosh.
saving 7 break points in the match. There was a 15-minute plus game at 3
Yeah.
all second set. And that was really the gating moment where as to where the match would go. Would Tommy Paul break him at 3-3, or would Taylor withstand each of these break points? And he did. It was remarkable. And it really just comes down to Taylor's ability to elevate his game when it counts. He knows how to level up in the important moments. And this has always been something that really impressed me about Taylor Fritz.
Yeah.
Why he's a top 10 player and why the other Americans aren't, I believe, is because Taylor Fritz knows how to elevate his game when it counts.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you nailed it. Just let's focus on that game because that was,
Yep.
I mean, of course, Fritz started off a little bit more solid, a little stronger, and won the first set with a break. But then the second set was close until I mean, that game was like, I mean, you could see like halfway through that game at least, you're like, okay, this is the game. Either Paul breaks, wins the second set, and who knows what happens in the third, maybe wins the third. Or if Fritz holds, this could be match over. You know, this could be the end of the day. And it went forever. So what are some of your highlights or takeaways from that? I mean, I remember some crazy ones where Tommy thought he won the point, I think, once or
Yeah.
twice, and Fritz just got there and won it like with
Yeah.
sheer will. Like there was one he came up to a ball that you thought sort of Tommy had won the point with close to net and Fritz, I think that was in that game and Fritz just he just got there and put it away deep and it was like oh man like not again
Yeah.
like ah too good.
I mean, I think a few things. I mean, I think, you know, Taylor in the big moments is very composed, right? He
Yeah.
just plays composed tennis. He looks confident.
And it's what we talked
Looks
about before.
relaxed.
He's got
Yeah.
extreme self-confidence.
Yeah.
He's got
Extreme.
extreme self-confidence. So when it comes down to the most pressure points, he believes he's the one who's going to win that point
And he
because he's
does.
got this extreme self-confidence.
Yeah. Now on the flip side, when you're overeager on the court and you're not constructing the point properly, giving yourself 3 to 5 shots to get into the point, to get loose, to get relaxed, to set up the winner, and you try to do it too soon, it's usually a recipe for trouble. And I saw that happening a bit with Tommy. Just kind of overeager, just going for really big shots, and that's great. I mean, you want to attack and you want to be, dictate points. But on the flip side, I think just that level of composure that Fritz showed in that particular game was so impressive to me. And then one other thing I want to pick up on, again, another astute observation was the ability Taylor Fritz had to get really difficult balls that he was way behind on the short hop, difficult shots. He's a big guy, 6'5" plus,
And
and
six
he moves like in some cases like Medvedev, it's kind of lanky spaghetti arms, big movements, not pretty out there, not tight like Tommy Paul moves, but he gets the balls and he's able to do things that are impressive. Even when he's really on his heels on the defensive. So Taylor Fritz impressed me not just with his excellent ground strokes throughout the match, but also his movement, I think, was top notch. And that was a surprise. I thought that Tommy would, if you compared them, see them, the two of them face off, Tommy would be far superior. That wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily the case. Taylor looked good out there in terms of
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah, that point that seared into my head here was I think it was like Tommy had hit a good shot. He was coming in. Fritz hit a good attempt at a passing shot. Tommy kind of volleyed it, like not the cleanest, best volley because he was not really expecting such a good low, hard passing shot. Popped across the court, and you still thought Fritz is so far back, not the quickest guy. Maybe
Right.
he's not going to get there, but he got there, and I can picture him with his like clunky, tall man
Right.
movement, but just like forcing his way to get there quick enough that he can do something with the ball, like not just stick his racket out, you know? And he got there,
Right.
he pushed himself, got there quick enough to put the ball away deep in the court. And Tommy was like, "Oh, I should have done better with that volley. Should have handled that passing shot better. Shouldn't have
Yep.
put such a high bouncing ball there for Fritz to get to." And but it was just like you can picture him. He's so clunky, he's so weird. He's like blocky with his
Yeah.
movement, but he gets to those balls and he makes sure that he hauls butt to
Yep.
get there in enough time to do what he wants with the racket, not just throw the racket at it, Because I
Yeah.
think
He
a lot of
has.
players, you might be like, "Oh, I'm gonna get to it and get a racket on it."
Yep.
Fritz is like, "No, I'm gonna get to it and have time to put it where I want." He's very focused, very dedicated in his effort. And I mean, you got to give it to him. He's where he is because of that kind of determination.
Yeah, I mean, that just comes down to, I remember when I played basketball in high school, is like court sense, right? Do you have good court sense? Do you know where the ball is going to be before it's there?
Yeah.
And in tennis, we sort of just call it anticipation. He anticipates the ball well, right? So it's just like,
Yeah.
he's got excellent ability to anticipate where the shot's going to be. And so even if he moves in that clunky way, he's
Yeah.
got like a kind of a jump on the ball before it even comes off Tommy's racket. And plus, these guys know each other's games so well, right? They grew up playing together since they were in juniors. They're
Yeah.
good friends. They're familiar with each other's games. And I just felt like Taylor looked more polished out there than Tommy did. And again,
Yeah.
Tommy, the rumor was that Tommy may have been struggling with a little bit of back pain. And I think
Yeah.
that injured him a bit.
I didn't watch much of that Mickelson match, and so I put it on like an hour ago. So I've got it playing here on the side because I was curious to see more of like what that match actually looked like. And yeah, he had the trainer out to massage his back. He
Yep.
was apparently
Yep.
feeling quite sore and from the week before. I think it did remind me a little bit though of that match against Djokovic, semifinals of Australian Open, where he just wanted it too bad. He was too eager to play his best tennis, and it sort of
Yep.
lowered his level a little bit. Um, I think, but at the same time, it wasn't that bad. I mean, he played pretty
Play
good.
good
I
tennis. Yeah,
mean, it
play good
was
tennis. The
Fritz
scores
played a
didn't.
little better.
Yeah, I agree. The scores didn't really showcase how good a match it was. There's actually some pretty good tennis. There's some great points. I would
But yeah,
add,
with I mean, these guys, you have to think they've seen every shot from each other 100 times,
right.
or 1,000. Like that when Fritz hit that low hard passing shot, he knew exactly what Tommy was gonna do. Like
Yeah.
and like he knew, okay, Tommy's gonna reach that ball probably. He's gonna put it like I need to start moving before he puts his racket out probably. Like
Yeah.
he knows the guy. So I mean, they know each other so well. It becomes a weird game of chess. It's like Nadal and Djokovic playing. Like it becomes a weird chess match where it's like neither of like they're both thinking what the other guy's thinking and what the other guy's thinking they're thinking and what the other guy's thinking they're thinking
Right,
they're
right,
thinking.
right.
It's like you know.
Yeah, no, I think I want to add to one other point, and that is, and I don't want to make excuses for Tommy, even though we both were kind of pulling for him to win. But I think it definitely takes a toll when you have a day off and you have
I
this,
know.
you just run through an incredible win against Francis Tiafoe. You're on this amazing roll. You're loose. Your body feels good. You've got all this momentum, and all of a sudden you've got a day where you're sitting outside thinking, "Am I going to play? Am I not going to play?" And you're watching the rain, and you're sort of stewing on the match, right? That
Yeah.
can build pressure, and if you're not able to sort of handle that pressure, as the big moment comes, it can lead to some tension going into the match. And I think, again, these are just things that separate a top 10 player from someone who's outside the top 10. And it's going to add a little bit of extra edge to his game, versus
Yeah.
Taylor, who's just probably, maybe handle it a little bit better.
No, and I said the same thing to you on that I said on Saturday. I said,
Yeah.
well, I think it's good. He's gonna play, they're gonna play tomorrow. No break. So he's gonna still have that he's on. He was on, he was feeling it, he's in the zone. He's gonna still have that tomorrow. The first sign I was like, oh no, this is trouble, was it being rained out on Sunday. I was like, oh no, this is not good for Tommy. This is not
Yeah.
he's gonna lose, he's gonna get fall out of the zone a little bit. Everything's gonna get this a little messed up, and Fritz is gonna come through. Like that was my first, and then the ace on the first point was my second. Like, oh no, this isn't going well.
We got trouble right off the
But
bat.
then I regained the hope a bit in that long game where I thought he could break, and then yeah, it just didn't happen. But they were both solid throughout the tournament. I think one thing we can say is that they really, it's easy to go get upset in a tournament.
Right.
Like it's
Right.
you're not gonna always win against everyone who's a lower seed, and it happens plenty of times at Delray Beach. So I think it's a good sign that they were both solid and consistent through the tournament, especially
Yep.
Tommy after having won the tournament the week before, because that's hard to do, to bounce back, change conditions, change balls. So I think that's solid. Tiafo, I was a little disappointed. I mean, I can't say. I mean, Tommy said he said that was one of the best or best match he played in the
Yeah.
past year,
Two,
and then it said,
two
or a
years, he
couple of
said.
years, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you're playing your best tennis the last couple of years, so that's like one of your best matches of your life. And
Yeah.
that's what it looked like to me. Like I don't remember him ever playing. I was like, holy cow. Before he even said that, I was like, that might have been the best I've ever seen Tommy play. Like
Yeah.
Tiafo wasn't quite on the ball. Like you said, he didn't, you can talk about it, but he didn't quite come into it with the same intensity or like winning mentality perhaps as Tommy did, and he sort of got thrown off by Tommy blitzing him. But Tommy was just on fire. But I was a little disappointed. Like Tiafoe's struggling right now. He's not having his best
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. And
So
then there's a lot of reasons why I think. I mean, let's pull the lens back first a little bit. We've reviewed the final just overall impression of the Delray Beach Open. Then we're going to go into the Tiafoe Tommy Paul match because it was sort of the second biggest match in terms of the seeds
yeah.
and rankings that we should just talk about a bit. But pulling the lens back, the big story of this tournament, I think, was that it showcased the potential for American tennis to really make a run this year in 2024. So I think like it's just a small 250. It's in Florida. It's not a big time, sort of venue to showcase what you think is going to happen for the rest of the year. But I think seeing the four that we did in the semifinal, Marcus Giron, in addition to Francis, Tommy, and Taylor, was a big deal. So I want to put that aside. Then jump into the Francis Tommy match and my thoughts on that real quick. And I
I will
think,
just say
yeah, go ahead.
too, we
Yep.
we nearly had 6 Americans and 2 Australians in the quarterfinals.
Right.
Zach Shahan, who was a top junior a couple of years ago, has been breaking through pretty well. He's 5'9", so he's got a whole different approach to the game
Right.
than most of these guys we see. But he nearly beat Caboli. They seem to have been junior rivals. This Italian
Yep.
kid, Caboli pulled it out and won. But if Zvida had won, it would have been 6 Americans and 2 Australians in the quarterfinals. So
Unbelievable. It was
so
really remarkable.
yeah.
It's something I was super proud of and excited about. Let's jump over to the Tiafo
So
Paul match.
just to be clear, so Tiafoe was the number 2 seed, Paul was the number
Right.
3 seed,
Correct.
Fritz was the number 1 seed.
Correct.
So yeah, this was I mean, my wife and I were really excited to watch the match, and then we were like, oh, that
Yeah.
wasn't good.
Yeah. So let's talk to that one a little bit. I think two things happened. One you already touched on, which is that Tommy Paul was in the zone. He played it to in his interview. He says it's the best match I played in the year, probably in the last 2 years. And this is the best 2 years he's
Yeah.
had, meaning the best tennis he's ever played in his life may have been
It's
against
so
the
Tommy. He's thinking like and not looking at the big picture of, hey, that must have been the best match I ever played. But I mean, I'm sure as a player like him, you probably you think, oh, I've had great matches. I mean, there's plenty of times you felt great, you played great. So, I mean, I'm not
So
saying anyway, sorry.
So there's a lot to dissect in Francis Tiafoe's game, right? So let me back up a little bit about these three, right? The three that are behind you, behind your head right now. You got Taylor, you got Francis, you got Tommy. Taylor Fritz, I think, is at the upper end of his capacity of how well he can play. I think he's about
Yeah.
95% of as good as he can get. I think maybe there's
97,
more there that I'm not.
99.7%.
Yeah, he's really, really close. Now, Taylor, that's Taylor.
Yeah.
Tommy and Francis, I think, are probably in the 60s or 70s in terms of the capacity they have to play better tennis. It's my own take for what it's worth. But
But not
it's
but
very
not of how high they will get in there. Like that's not saying they will get to 100% at some point in their career.
right,
Yeah.
right. But
Right.
I mean, Taylor is I think
Yeah.
is really, really much higher in terms of he's playing at somewhere above 90% capacity of how good he can play, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Tommy, I think the problem isn't so both of them are so let's get into Francis and Tommy, right? Francis and Tommy both super talented, right? I think in Tommy's case, where he may fall down a bit is in the mental sort of toughness realm. Can he and not just mental toughness, but can he keep up that mental strength throughout an entire match, or does he go away a bit? Now with Francis, I think he could get more fit. I think he could work a little bit harder on his fitness so he can relax a little bit more into the match. But also, I think with Francis, it's just a matter of how hungry is he out there. He always looks a little, to me, he always looks sometimes a bit flat. He just doesn't really feel like he's
This is
thrilled and excited to play.
this is
He,
what my wife was commenting about
yeah,
in this match.
is he phoning it in or does he really want it? You know what I mean? And I think other pro athletes have even talked to Francis about this, and he's even admitted this in a few interviews. Is he really putting his all into his game? And I felt like I saw that a little bit. So there's a few things going on. He changed coaches, right? He moved to Diego Moyano, who was his coach, who is over here in Mission Bay and Boca Raton. He's the head pro there. Diego Moyano also used to work with Coco Gauff, bunch of players. He was at the USTA national campus. We're working with all these guys as juniors. So there's going to be some speed bumps when it comes to adjusting and adapting to a new coach. And I think
But
that
also,
played.
why did he change? Do you know?
There's rumors. I'm not sure. No one really knows why he changed. Maybe he just felt like he wasn't playing his best tennis. It was time for him to change. I don't know if it was a good move or not. We'll soon see. But so far, I didn't love his performance in the semifinals. But that said, again, let's go easy on him in the sense that Tommy played like the perfect match. So it's
Yeah.
and Tommy Paul's pretty tough to look. Carlos Alcaraz lost to him twice.
No, it's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, well, yeah, you have more to say on that before I, yeah.
No, no, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, uh, well, okay, I don't know where to start with the coaching, So Wayne Ferreira, he made great progress with Wayne Ferreira, and
Big.
Wayne Ferreira got him more focused. A popular story was that, he didn't let Tiafo look at his phone while training, while practice,
Right.
while and like this got him helped give him more focus. And Tiafo was really focused on making these improvements, on doing anything like to get better. And I think that obviously served him very well. He had a great run at the US Open. He really moved up. And I think it's just natural. You're going to hit a period of stagnation. You're going to hit a
Yeah.
period of you're not rising anymore because, you can only like it's hard, you're going to hit weaker periods. And it seems like that period sort of was dragging on with Wayne Ferreira. And so maybe he just decided he needed a change. Maybe there were specific things, but maybe they're just like, well, I'm not climbing, so I should
Yeah.
change. I don't know. But I also worry like maybe he took his foot off the pedal a little bit on what he and Ferrer were so focused on, which is like this, this hardcore obsessive, focus on improving. And maybe that was part of it. I don't know. But in terms of the actual match, like I think it's tough. You said it like well when we were talking privately. It sort of felt like when they went out there, they know each other so well. Tiafoe
Yeah.
sort of went out like, "Yep, we're gonna play. I'm gonna play Tommy Paul. We're gonna, we get into the match, get into the groove, and then see who ends up winning." And Tommy came out like I'm gonna kill you. Just
Yeah.
blitzed. He just blitzed Tiafoe, and Tiafoe was thrown off by it a little bit, I think, where he was just like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on here? I thought we were friends, thought we were gonna have a good match here," you know. And so I think that was part of it. Like Tommy's intensity was higher than average for him.
Right.
And Tiafoe, they're two of the coolest, calmest guys, the most laid
Right.
back guys. And
Right.
so I think that threw him off. And then, there was, I told you there was a point early on where Tiafoe absolutely blasted a ball off to the corner, one corner of the court. And like almost any other player, I mean, aside from Tommy and Alcaraz, maybe, Medvedev, Demon Hour in some way, like no one was going to get that ball.
Yeah.
So Tommy got it back in a decent position. And I think that was like, what the heck? How did he do that? That was one of the signs he was going to have a crazy good game, good match. And then Tiafoe blasted it just as hard, it seemed, to the other corner of the court.
Yep.
Tommy sprinted across the baseline, got his racket, got the ball back. I don't remember if it cleared the net, but he got his racket on it decently. And you're
Yep.
like, how is it humanly possible that he got that ball back and then got to that ball in enough time to get his racket on it? Like, how is that possible? So I think it set the stage real firmly for the match. And it was sort of like, I think Tiafoe saw like, oh man, this is going to be a freaking grind. This is going to be a battle.
Oh man.
This is going to be hell trying to get through Tommy Paul today. And, I think that sort of put him off. And he was sort of in the boat that Tommy was a little bit in the final, where he was trying too hard to be too good then. And he was,
Yeah.
people say he was having an off day. He might have just been off, or he might have just been trying too hard to be too good because he saw how hard it was going to be, and he didn't want to maybe grind for 4 hours with Tommy Paul for Delray Beach,
Right.
final.
For
So
two.
I don't know,
Yeah.
and it's hard to say when someone's that on, it's hard to say how much the other person was off or how much they were pushed off the court. But in general, with Tiafoe, one of my concerns with him is, um, I mean, his skill, his touch, his power, amazing. He's just big. He's bigger. He's bulkier than most players,
Right.
and he looks a bit like a boxer. He's got a big, big arms, big chest. And sometimes I feel like he's not light enough in his movement. He can't, he's quick, but
Right.
he's not able to. It's one area where you can sort of attack him. You try to run him all around the court,
Yeah.
he's gonna sort of like, he's gonna start struggling. And I feel like Tommy knew that, and he ran him all over the court, and he was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
this is my game today." And I don't know
And
how like, of course you can always slim down, beef up,
right.
whatever. It's I've never seen Tiafoe like really like skinny. He's not a skinny guy, but it's like, could he slim down a little bit to get a little bit more nimble, and be able to change direction a little better without all the weight of his huge muscles. Like,
Right.
I mean, he just seems like a little bit too muscly. And Alcaraz is a little bit in that boat, and he seems like he slimmed down a little bit this year. Like he beefed up and he slimmed down a little bit. And I think there's this like prime area you want to be like, where you're strong, but you're not too heavy that it's hard to change, because tennis is all changing direction. Like, it's all changing direction, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's all getting in and out of corners. And if you and being able to, master your footwork so that you move around the court, mostly laterally really well, but also, north, south, to and from the net if you need. But obviously that's not the majority of movement in tennis. And obviously diagonal movement as well. So at the end of the day, Tommy's athleticism really, really shone through in the match with Francis Tiafoe. I agree with you. I think Tiafoe might be a little bit too muscle bound. And I also think
And
Tiafoe could work on his fitness. I mean, at the end of the day, even if he stays heavier or more muscle bound, he just needs to work on his fitness and work harder on it, because I think he has the athleticism. It's just a matter of he's got to put the work in. So
But I mean, just look in that picture behind me. Like, if you walked
yeah,
into a gym and you saw those two guys, or those three if you count Fritz. I
Yeah.
mean, you're gonna be
Yeah.
look at Tiafoe and be like, whoa, look at him. Whoa, look at that guy. And you're
Yeah.
gonna not even pay any attention to Tommy or Fritz because they're just like, they're like, oh, those guys are trying to beef up. You know,
Yeah. And
they've
this
got a
is,
ways to go. Because like gym look, Tiafoe's like, I mean, what else could you want? Like it's
yeah,
just
this
he's got to
is,
be a little quicker.
I'm always very fascinated by the fitness part of tennis. And I wrote an article during the week. I got a chance to sit down with Tommy Paul, which was fantastic. We talked about his views on Florida. And then we also talked about his training and recovery regimen in terms of fitness. And here's the thing, Zach, that strikes me. I think I mentioned this to you before about being up close and personal with a lot of these tennis players at the US Open, the Miami Open last year, and Delray Beach Open this year, being so close to them and getting a sense of what they look like. First of all, they're all very tall, right? We talked about that in our
Yeah,
previous podcast. But the other thing that was so fascinating is they all have tree trunk legs, right? These guys are very, very strong, and they have almost like a bodybuilder. They have really, really big legs and strong legs, but they tend to be slim up top. And this is the case if you look at Tommy Paul. He's got huge tree trunk legs that look like they're like a shorter pro soccer player, for instance. You know what I mean? Like someone who just really, really has done a lot of leg work. But up top, from the waist up, he's a slim guy. He's ripped and all, but he's not quite as muscle bound, let's say, as Francis. You don't want a beach body for tennis, right? You want a body that's going to perform well on the court, which means you want very strong legs, that can handle the abuse of hard courts, especially. But you want to be kind of loose and lanky up top. You think about Djokovic and Federer, two perfect examples. These guys are both,
Sinner.
kind of very slim up top, but tree trunk legs. That's the body I think you want for tennis.
Yeah, and Sinner
And,
too.
and height doesn't hurt, right?
I know. I was gonna start off by saying like, it's just another case. It's not fair. Tall people have too much benefit, too much advantage in tennis. But then I was like, well, Djokovic was 6'2", Federer's, Nadal, none of them are outside, none of
Right.
them are. But I think that's also a case of like of averages, right? You have much more people 6 foot, you're gonna have more chance of a phenom in the 6 foot range than the 6'5" range because there's just a lot fewer people who are 6'5". So it helps you, but then you're more likely to get that, diamond in the rough at a more normal height. But yeah, no, it's yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I think it's a fascinating sport in that regard, and that you can have so many different body types and win in different ways. I mean, so I think, we sort of focus on what Tiafoe could do to be better, and Tommy Paul like mentally. But one thing with Tommy too that I always like, it would be nice if he had a go-to like whipping winner forehand that he could hit a
Yeah.
little bit from time to time because he's not weak. He's got a good all-around game in every way, but when he just needs that whipping winner of a forehand, it seems like he doesn't have it. And it seems like this has been like what killed him in a handful of cases. And it's like against Fritz, like if he just had a little bit of a bigger at times shot, maybe that would push
Yeah,
him.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I guess so. I ran
Not
in,
his regular shot, obviously, but like could he like add what do you think? Could he
Okay,
add?
so this was very interesting. I ran into a guy, and I apologize that I can't recall his name right now. I met so many people at the Delray Beach Open who were really, really cool and super interesting to talk to. This guy was an ex-pro player, South African, played with Johan Creek, right? A doubles guy. I think he was in the top 100 in the world. And he was working on some video about sort of biomechanics related to tennis, and talked about the fact that there's this thing that he calls the reverse coil, right? So if you look at my hand, it's going down as opposed to being up, right?
Right,
So
right.
both Tommy and Francis have this reverse coil, this weird looking wrist position on their forehand.
Yeah.
So we got into a super nerdy discussion about with
Just pause real quick. I can
yeah.
just picture them at 7 or 9 years old or something, being like, "Hey, look, I figured this out. This makes it
Right.
whip more." You know.
Right. And that's what,
Anyway,
what this guy who
but
was from South Africa was saying. He just said, look, man, and he's an ex-pro player. Like, it doesn't really matter how you start the stroke. As long as you're, when you strike the ball, you're at the right spot, you hit the sweet spot, and your wind up, this reverse coil per se, can be an okay way to approach it. And Tommy and Francis have been able to do that successfully. And they didn't get that coached out of them at an academy or by a bunch of coaches earlier in their career. They just sort of stuck with this unusual style of coiling, which starts with this whipping motion with the wrist down. And in any event, what does it mean from my standpoint? Much certainly not to the excellence that this guy would put on the pro tour was. But what I told him was like, look, at the end of the day, you know, I think maybe there's some things they can both do on their forehand to refine it a bit more. I still don't feel like either of them have a forehand weapon that like a Taylor Fritz has. Frankly, Taylor Fritz's forehand when he rips is huge.
Mm.
And I don't feel necessarily like that might be the case as much with Tiafo and Tommy Paul. And look, if you need a big forehand on the tour, that's it. You just need one, just like you need a
And
big serve.
they both like once in a blue moon they'll hit a ball like
Right.
bullets like a bullet through the court. And you're like, holy cow, he has it in his repertoire. He can do that, you know? And I feel like it's partly like, I mean, it's a timing thing. It's not just it's just like, you have to decide you're gonna time it in a way that you're gonna actually rip it, not hit it hard with, like, you have to decide. I mean, you can picture Alcaraz especially doing it. There's times when all of a sudden he's like, I'm gonna just rip this ball. And it's a timing thing. It's about when you whip it and then going for it and then having the mentality, this is supposed to be a winner. And I've seen like, so it's like he can do it, but it's like he's not predispositioned to pull out that shot. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
I
it's
agree.
like, and maybe if he pulled it out more, he'd hit a lot of errors with it and I'd regret it. But I just feel like he sort of needs to have that. He's in a great spot, top 20. But you to get to the top 10 and up the top 10, you have to have something beyond. Like you can't just be solid, and like you have to have some special sauce to throw in.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I feel like he doesn't go for that. And Fritz does. I mean, Fritz maybe doesn't even have nearly the talent either of them have, but he's gonna go for it with everything he has in his body when it's needed. And
And there's more topspin on the ball. He generates more shape on his shot. I just feel
much
like
more consistent.
Fritz is more consistent, and he can come in behind his forehand with a little bit more aggression and confidence. And I think both of these guys, Tiafo and Tommy Paul can. But
I
I,
mean,
you
we
know,
we
I would,
we haven't given him prop. I mean, we
yeah.
thought it's just such a given now, but he's so solid. It's
Oh yeah.
so ridiculously hard to beat him on the baseline, to penetrate, to get him to miss. He's so solid on the baseline, and he's gotten better moving in. Like he knows that's his weakness. He works on it constantly. He's not talented at it, but he's like more willing to move in, and that's half the battle.
Yeah, and that's a dimension that every player, on the tour needs to add to their game so that they create a little bit more confusion in their opponent, a little bit more, moves on the chessboard, let's say.
Yeah.
But pulling the lens back, we have about 5 minutes left. I think the key piece for me walking away from an incredible week of tennis at the Delray Beach Open was that, again, American tennis is coming and it's very exciting. But, I was very impressed with Mickelson. We talked about that. It was an early round victory for Tommy Paul. The kid is really good. I got a chance to watch him and really, 3 sets of incredible tennis, pushed Tommy Paul right to the brink. And Tommy Paul in this case was the more composed player who
Yeah.
was able to construct points just with a little bit more refinement than if it's Mickelson. I apologize, I'm not pronouncing it right, but the kid is good. He's a big player. He's got a huge serve. He's got big ground strokes, and I think he's got a bright future. So I think, there was a lot to like about the Delray Beach Open. I think the biggest thing that I really was excited about was American tennis and just what a great tournament it is, man. If you live in Florida, and you read Florida Tennis Magazine, you're watching this video and you're like, maybe I should go attend this tournament. my recommendation would be definitely make the trip. It's incredible. It's on Atlantic Avenue, which is like sort of the Lincoln Road in Miami of sort of the Palm Beach area. Like it's got a cool
Yeah.
vibe, lots of cool restaurants, art galleries, nightclubs, bars. It's just a cool place, man. And
Yeah.
so, Zach, you went last year and you loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a couple years ago, but yeah,
Maybe 2 years ago.
we're
Yeah.
going to Miami Open this year, and I know I'm gonna enjoy it, but I feel like we're gonna be so far away from the court in our seats, Um, I feel like I'm gonna think like, next year let's just go to Delray Beach where we can get up close and see our favorite players, Tommy Paul, Tiafoe, Manarino, right up like so much closer. Watch the match so much like that's my expectation that I'm gonna enjoy the Miami Open, but I'm gonna be like, wow, I wish I could watch it from the level I can at Delray Beach. And it's like, well, why not go to Delray Beach and watch the same guy? I mean, of course, there's more players gonna be in the Miami Open,
Sure.
but
Sure.
I mean, there's always some top talent, and from my perspective, there's always guys who like my favorite, some of my favorite players. So it's like
And let me
we
just go
saw
on the record.
Dimitrov there a couple years ago, Nori.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what do you what so to wrap up, what are your thoughts going into Miami? What are your thoughts from this any
So I think these guys all have incredible potential to go pretty far in the tournament. I think, what do they need to do to move their way into the quarters or semis or finals of the tournament? I mean, look, they're coming up against some big guns. I mean, this is a little different than Miami Open versus the Delray Beach Open. You've got Sinner, you've got Djokovic, you've got Alcaraz, you've got Medvedev, you've got some monsters, Zverev, Tsitsipas, there's players that can really play
you've
some
got
ball.
people in the first and second round who can knock you out if you're not
Right.
coming
Very
in.
quickly. Very quickly. And again, there's more money at stake, there's more points at stake. It's a bigger stage for each of the players. So I think for them to go far in at the Miami Open is going to be interesting to follow, and we will on the website and via our videos. But I think at the end of the day, these three have a very big advantage, and that was one, they played this tournament, right? It's a hard court tournament in the same weather as they're going to get in Miami, and they got
Is the
semis.
bounce similar or you're not sure? Is it
You know,
similar
I'm
speed and height of bounce or
I'm not 100% sure. I will say I did play on the Miami Open courts last year. That's pretty cool. They had a media
you
tournament,
did?
and I did
Oh,
actually play on the court,
oh
and I
wow.
loved it. I thought that the courts played really nicely. And it just had a really true bounce, and I really liked the way the courts played. I have played on the hard courts at Delray Beach, and I think they're fairly similar. That would
Okay.
be my opinion. Um,
So you should get an
so
advantage from playing Delray Beach. You should feel
yes, I think players should play Delray Beach because if they do, they're going to get prepped for the weather, hard court sort of feeling that you're going to get in the Miami
the
Open. So I think
humidity.
this is, yeah, the humidity, exactly. And it's just a key tournament to play. So I think this is giving them a big advantage. And one other advantage I'll mention as we close up the show is that, hey, look, these guys all now live in South Florida, which means they work out here all the time, right? Taylor Fritz has a residence in Miami. From my understanding, after multiple interviews with Francis Tiafoe, he's got two places. Now, it could be one place for his family and one place for him, but he's got a place in Boynton Beach and in Boca Raton. And then for Tommy Paul, he's been in Boca Raton since he was about 14 years old, according to the interview that we conducted together. He's been playing at Everett Tennis Academy. Sometimes he plays the FAU courts, Florida Atlantic University, which is based in Boca Raton. So, I mean, these guys know the way to play Florida tennis. They're not going to be out of sorts when it comes to the Miami Open, and I'm excited to see what they do.
You sent me a hilarious picture which you found on Reddit or somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'd never seen that. But these
Oh
guys,
my
how old
God.
were they? Like maybe 14 years old? It
Yeah.
was Opelka, Fritz, and Tommy Paul at
So
like
cool.
looking like totally like
Punks. They look like punks.
they
They
look
look
like
like
dorky 14-year-olds who think they're cool. Like
right,
believe me, I'm
right.
very familiar with this type of that was,
The
I
comments
I
on Reddit are
recognize
hilarious too. Yeah.
yeah, I recognize it. And it was just hilarious. They were so funny looking. But it just shows, how it's I mean, you got to find the picture if you It just shows how far back they go and how yeah, it's been a long, crazy journey for them, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, awesome. It's been awesome being at the Delray Beach Open. I love the tournament. We're gonna get back to our next video will be about Ben Shelton, and I think I even have an article, hopefully that will be published probably over the weekend about Ben and his experience at University of Florida. That should be fascinating. So keep following the blog.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say we have to do that before another
yeah.
tournament starts, but actually, yeah, there's already half the guys at Delray Beach are playing in Mexico. You know, it's crazy. It always blows my
Right.
mind when from Delray Beach. It's like it hits me more than anywhere else because I'm been there and I see, oh, these guys are here right next to me, and then, oh wait, now they're in Mexico.
Yeah,
Just like
great.
crazy how quickly they have to move. As soon as they lose, they got to get on a plane and go to their next place, and it's a crazy life. Yeah, but thanks
It's
a lot,
great.
Matt. We'll have a lot more to say in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But
You got it. Thank you, Zach. Very cool. Doing at least two shows on the Delray Beach Open. Hopefully, you'll be here next year to check out at least a match or two with
yeah,
the family. And we'll definitely get back into it, probably live for the Miami Open. So it should be pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. All right. Cheers. Have a good day.
Cheers.